But the fun with Xsolla does not stop there. We have another panel that is going to be hosted by Sam, and his panelists are going to be talking about the D2C basics, the do's and don'ts of D2C. So I'd like to welcome Sam and his wonderful panelists to the stage, please. So,
hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out to our panel. You guys have all your mics? Great. Thanks. Great. So thanks for coming out. We're going to talk about D2C, the do's and don'ts, and everything in between. I'm going to introduce two of our panelists right now. They're going to give a little background on themselves and then talk about where their strategy is heading in regards to D2C. So Stephen Lee, I'll start with you. Little background.
Introduction. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Lee. I'm head of partnerships at DECA Games. We are the free-to-play publishing division of the Embracer Group. So we focus on helping developers and publishers to look after their older existing live titles as they slowly decline over age. We help them to operate profitably for as long as possible so that the players can enjoy their favorite games for as long as possible. Before I joined DECA, I was head of publishing at a publisher called 6 Waves, which was originally doing Facebook games in the social gaming era way back in the day. We are also publishing mobile games in Asia. 6 Waves is now part of Stillfront. They're also around. And like most of you, I'm also kind of a lifelong gamer as well, so very happy to be here.
And then real quick, like, what have you thought about, like, D2C? And we'll get into the basics, but...
No, not really.
Not at all?
I haven't thought about D2C at all, actually. No. Yes, of course. I think right now we're going through the same process that everyone here is going through, trying to stay on top of the latest news, which we're going to get into, trying to figure out what we should do, talk to people in the space, and try to figure out what's the best course of action for us as a publisher.
Cool. Ozzy?
Burak, Chief Business Officer at Tilting Point. I joined the Tilting Point 8 years ago, and back then it was a team in New York of 35 people, and it grew to be 350 in a few years, so it was a great run. And we're a publisher. We call it mobile first because the DNA is always mobile, but we have a lot of games that migrated to the web, to Steam, and even some on console. I'll go to the D2C directly.
Sure. Yeah.
We were, I think, early adopters with you guys.
Pretty early, yeah.
Pretty early. I think Scopely
was the first.
I thought we were the first.
Oh, of course you were the first. You actually were the first. Yeah, you were.
With DECA? Or with...
Yeah, they were doing it way before.
Okay. So it still was early. I think that it's a great momentum, great conversation to have because a lot of things are happening. And we always, as a publisher, we want to be at the front of it because we have a lot of genres, a lot of games that we either make or publish, and we have a lot of developers that we talk with on a daily basis. So we want to know always what's the latest and what's the best things we can use from insights and good partners as well.
And I'm Sam Gaglani. I'm the EVP of Global Business Development at Xsolla. I've been at the company 13 years in the games industry since 2003. Previous life was film. Don't hold that against me. But I'm super excited to talk to you guys today because we are just now in the post-guideline changes of what happened a few weeks ago. There's a lot of fluidity that's happening. I think earlier this week, Apple asked for an appeal, and the judge declined to hear the appeal for now. And she also said that the guidelines could stay in place. And I'm doing this right now kind of to set context for where this could potentially go. So if the judge denies their appeal, Apple's last course of action is to write a letter to the Supreme Court of the United States. And if the Supreme Court declines to hear that, what you see now will probably stay in place. If the Supreme Court decides to hear the case, now we're talking US politics and who knows what will happen. But that's kind of the context that we're in right now. I want to talk about like the fallout, like, you know, based on those guidelines that dropped, what was your first instinct? I'll start with you guys, Stephen and DECA, because you'd already been sort of doing it, kind of like, what was the reaction for you guys?
Yeah, I think this is, to be honest, my personal opinion, this is a long time coming. there's a reason why people have always been kind of, hey, hammering the platforms a little bit, like, why are we paying this type of fee?
Yeah.
What's going on? We're not getting what we used to get. And, before we get any further, I want to be very clear, like, none of us would have jobs if not for Apple. Or Google Play.
Great.
They're great partners. They're very instrumental in our success. But that being said, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be improved. And I think these legal proceedings and this news is a function of that, because people have started to realize, look, there's so many other ways to do business, especially we're in a mature mobile market. Margins are really critical, right? So if we're able to achieve margins in a better way, please allow us to do that and have the freedom to do that. So.
Well, it's not just margins, it's actually getting to know your user a lot better as well.
Sure.
Because Apple kind of took that away.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for us, it's maybe not the nail in the coffin, but another step in the right direction. I think we're all kind of seeing the potential that's out there, which is why we're really happy and excited to be talking about it. And coming here to talk to you guys, to see what you're up to, comparing notes, and also seeing what might be working best for the future.
Ozzy?
Yeah, so look, it definitely feels like a part of a process.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the milestone that is the most, until now at least, the most meaningful one. But I think it's only going to continue. Usually I'm optimistic, and I think that there's no way back. It's just the cracks are going to get larger and larger. I would say that for us, what changed mainly is that before that, because we have very good relationship with the platforms, obviously, as a publisher, we were very much walking on eggshells and trying to be very cautious. We want to be compliant. We didn't want to do anything that breaks any policy or any rule. But once that happened, it's basically saying, hey, US, let's be as aggressive as possible. And let's find the best way to get the message out to our consumers that they can get sometimes more value if they go outside the store in a very seamless way. That's kind of the challenge that we are going, like how to make it very seamless and accessible, but at the end of the day, give our consumers more value.
Yeah. So I think that brings us to the do's and don'ts of what you should be doing right now versus what you shouldn't be doing. And I'm going to ask the audience, like, if there are any developers or studios here, who is currently, post guidelines steering users right now to a direct-to-consumer store, or maybe even, displaying buy buttons? And if there's no developers and publishers, that's okay. But raise your hand. Is anyone? One? Yes. Two. Great. So I think we got to talk about like what you can do and what you can't do. What we know and what we're seeing immediately in the marketplace is companies are definitely displaying a banner ad in a store and redirecting to a direct-to-consumer storefront. That's something we saw probably like day two from big partners like Niantic started doing it for Pigo. What we have not seen, or we're slowly starting to see, are the buy buttons. And that's kind of where I wanted to start the conversation off. Each company's culture is different, so I know one company is going to be more risk averse versus another company is more risk tolerant. Stephen, what's kind of your culture over there?
We're very risk averse. Our business model is very different, so we're very focused on taking care of, in a lot of cases, very, very old mobile games. So some of them more than 10 years old, early mobile hits. So for us, the name of the game is not to break anything, not to piss off our players, that kind of thing. But that being said, there is tremendous value that can come from D2C. So we're trying very carefully to test things and explain to them. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is because we have a very close, direct dialogue with our core players. Yeah, especially the whales that have been with us for years and years. We can explain to them what's going on and be very transparent. And the ones that are willing to give it a shot will give us a shot. It's never perfect. We've made mistakes before. We've run into hurdles with Apple, iOS approval, that kind of thing. But luckily, we've earned the trust of our players so that, okay, maybe this one didn't work out, but they're willing to try and give us very, very honest feedback. So that informs how we can provide a better experience for them in the future.
So it sounds like what you're doing is the safer route, which is displaying something in app, redirecting to a store place. Are there any sort of things you could share with the audience, like tactics that work that you've seen? I'm assuming value-added stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, all of the things that you guys have been reading about,
Yeah.
you know, like discounts, exclusive items, you know, things that you kind of need to get out of there to do.
Yeah.
And the objective is to show them that, oh, actually I can get something really interesting. It could be low-hanging fruit for us and not really require a lot of integration work or
That's a
creating
key
anything
point.
new.
Yeah.
And just testing the waters and seeing if it works. And
Got
so
it.
far it's worked really well for us. Our ambition is to grow the percentage of our revenue that comes off platform. We want to continue to do that. It's, you know, well into double digits right now, and it's moving up. The trend is looking good.
So the buy button thing, would you ever go there?
I wouldn't rule it out. I think
Okay.
what would be really helpful is, for example, you guys or some of your competitors who are also here can continue what you've been doing, which is sharing with the market and
Yeah.
saying, hey, these guys, here's some ideas, or here's some of what our partners have tried already, and they're seeing these kinds of results, right?
Yeah.
If someone trustworthy or another established player in the industry has validated that these tactics work, for sure,
Yeah.
we're willing to give it a shot as
Okay.
well.
Fair enough. Ozzy, how are you guys approaching it?
So, look, we're in it for 3-4 years, I think.
Yeah.
The first stage was implementation. So we basically have in our portfolio now more than 20 games. So it was to select which games we think are much more appropriate for a web shop
Yeah.
than others.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first stage. It's like, in our case, where it's mobile first, it would be, okay, games that are probably more prone to be PC games as well. Games with strong communities and core users, we think are a much better
The
fit.
genre is really based.
Yeah, more strategy games, and we have RPG strategy games. And I think that the implementation is just a start. So if I would give one advice, you know, we have games out of the 7, let's say, that we just did the green check and put them on the web shop.
Yeah.
Not good enough.
No.
The games that we really invested in, that we did a real live ops operation, like a real process, a real effort to get engaged with the users, show them the value. By the way, we also tried, besides just showing them more value, more content, or discount, we also did a thing we're sending them to free offers.
Oh, you are?
And then actually trying to convert on the web shop to make them people that understand how
Okay.
to buy on the web shop. So the idea is when we look at those 6-7 games, is like, okay, which ones the conversion is better, which ones actually drive a real upside in revenue and
Yeah.
profit against the mobile version, and let's double down, let's optimize.
Got it.
Now, to your question about buy button, definitely in.
Really?
Yeah, because I think that what we're doing now is phase 1. It's like link outs. Okay? But I'm still driving players to a different universe.
Yeah.
Like, the real desire is that they're not even out. Okay? If I can create an experience that it's in-app, the player doesn't even understand it, he goes to another place, and is buying directly there,
Yep.
that's the
It's the
perfect solution.
ultimate scenario.
Yeah.
But is that initial user experience is going to see 2 buy buttons, right?
Yes.
Is that going to make them think this is a weird experience?
But I can give them a choice. Look, we're all in early stages,
Yeah.
right? I can give them a choice, and if I can give them that choice while understanding the value in the other choice, I think that it's the best way
Yeah.
forward. It's almost like Spotify is doing it for a long time. You can,
Correct.
you can pay through the Spotify system.
Yeah.
You can do it through iOS,
Yeah,
and
it
the
does.
user chooses.
Yeah, they have the freedom to do what they want. What we have been hearing from some of our partners is they're doing a hybrid model. So they're doing like 80% to a direct link out, 20% to the buy button. They're taking that data, they're looking at that data, they're looking at conversion, they're looking at repeat conversion on the buy button, because what they noticed was they weren't seeing it as high versus a shop, because the shop is where the loyalty and the reward piece lives, and there they could incentivize users to continually come back. I'm trying to think of how that's going to happen in a buy button world, or if you've even thought about it yet. Open for
I mean, it sounds like you're saying everything should be A/B tested, right?
everything
which is
should be
like
A/B tested.
Everything
right?
in our
Caution
industry.
is
Yeah.
the key.
Look, I mean, we definitely have caution, and we're definitely conservative in not breaking anything that works well. Okay, this is very important. We're not dealing with players that we're giving them something new. We're dealing with players that already understand how to buy on Apple, and they come to the game on a daily basis or weekly basis.
Yeah.
So the worst thing we can do is create friction, right? So I think A/B testing is also for that reason, to make sure that what we're doing is clear enough.
Yeah.
And it's not breaking current cycles of
Current player experience and what they're looking for. The other big question we get from developers is, how is this going to affect organic discovery, featuring in the App Store? To date, have you seen anything from Apple in your games that would steer... knocking on wood,
No,
yes.
to date, no. But I mean, this is one of the reasons why we're pretty risk averse, is because, you know, even though organics are not what they used to be, and the App Store is not, discovery is not what it used to be, you know, there's still the platform that the primary platforms that your games are hosted on, can be found on. So, you know, you're kind of subject to their whims, right? So they could turn off organics, or they could mess with ASO, and, you know, or just make your life harder in some ways. And
But you just don't know.
Yeah, so I think our goal is to, hey, you know what, like, let's not, you know, try to pretend. I think the platforms also understand the reasons why this is happening, and I think they recognize that as business owners, we have commercial interests, and we're trying to figure out the best thing for our business, and they can appreciate that. So we just need to do that and figure out how to do that in a way that's not upsetting, right?
Yeah, because there's still, like you said earlier, it's still a strong marketplace. There is discovery that is to be had there, and without the marketplace, you can't get the app. So there's still value. And anything you want to share?
No, we didn't see something. I mean, definitely not on the clear path. But I would take it to the positive side. I would say that part of it is to maintain and nurture and invest in the relationship with Apple and Google in parallel.
Yeah.
So just as an example, we had a conversation with Google about Webshops 2 weeks ago, you know, and helping them to understand
what was going on.
What was going on, what we're doing, what we're planning to do. So I think that as long as we're transparent with them, and we're trying to find what bothers them, what doesn't bother them, I think
what pushes their buttons.
Exactly. Maybe the buy button. But that's really I think the best course of action, is to really have such good relationship with them that we're not doing anything in secret. You know?
Okay. So I want to talk about user acquisition. We talked about this earlier. Does this now mess with the UA math of like CPIs and CPAs? Like, how are you going to approach it? Curious to see how you guys... No? Business as usual?
Honestly, business as usual.
Okay.
I mean, our business is actually on the total opposite end as Asi's business. They're very, very, very heavily driven in UA and UA funding.
Yeah.
We are
not
risk averse, as you know, and our titles have already been scaled years ago. So I think I'll lay back and let you comment on this one.
Look, two things. One is definitely, if I have a result, and this is real numbers, in let's say Star Trek, that I got 15% more net revenue and 5% more profit because I'm using a web shop, right? In general, like for the whole title, then of course my UA is going to be more efficient because I extended the margin, right? However, the second point that I would make, and we're still in early stages, but I think I see the whole market moving there. I want now to understand how can I do UA web that drives players directly to the web shop, but obviously the right players, right?
Capturing
so
the
it will
people
be probably a
spend.
segment that is most likely to get there. We, for example, hired someone from InnoGames.
That's right, you told me that.
Yeah, which is a PC web native. You know, they know how to do it. It's not as easy as to do it for mobile, but I think that's also the direction.
Okay. So I want to get back to tactics. I'm curious, are you guys doing in-app messaging direct to the user with a direct call to action to the store? In-app message? No.
Not yet,
That-
and I think the main reason for that is it's not necessary
Okay.
for us for most of our games.
Because they've been exposed to the store for a while.
That and
Yeah.
we have direct communication channels with them that don't,
Okay.
where it doesn't need to be in your face within
Yeah.
the app. So it's very clear to most of our whales that this is an option.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are you incentivizing them to come back? Is there a loyalty or reward program in place?
For some games, yes, there is.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you guys are doing everything.
Yeah, but look, part of it is when you say return, it's a big point because if you are bringing people to the web shop and you succeeded in educating them to buy there and understand it, you want them to return
Yeah.
and have it as a habit, and that requires constant live ops, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be a one-time messaging thing.
Got it. And as far as loyalty, are you thinking expanding the loyalty now, or now that you're able to do buy buttons, will you?
Yeah, I think for any publisher, I think there's value in creating brand loyalty and trust in your brand. So absolutely, if you are planning on, if you have more than one game in your portfolio and you want to build that brand equity with your players,
Yeah.
it's a really great idea to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing that happened when the guidelines changed is someone in our company said, "Oh God, no one's gonna need a web store anymore. They're just gonna do buy buttons." And I was like, "No, actually, I think they're gonna live in tandem together because the value of a web store is you actually get to know your player. They're living in a different part of the universe. They're getting, loyalty, reward points. There's things that you can do in there that you can't do in the app." So I think the business case for Webshop is still there. Going back to the buy button, I think it's something you would surface for specific types of gameplay behavior. Like you're playing the game and shit, the level, I lost. I need to instantly buy something quickly. That I could see happening over and over and over again. I'm assuming that's how you're approaching it.
Yeah, look, before the panel, I spoke to Ben.
Oh, yeah.
Ben is our web shop guy.
Yeah.
While I go and travel to conferences, he's actually doing the real job on the ground. So, I asked him, like, what would be your thinking or insight about this exact thing that you're mentioning? Like, why do you need a web shop?
Yeah.
If you could do it seamless in the app. And one of the things that he advised from his experience is that don't create only a store. If you can, create a media hub.
Yeah, it's
Like,
a hub.
Can it turn to be much more than just
Yeah.
a place to
A
buy,
top-up shop. It
or
shouldn't
even
be
more
that.
than rewards?
Yeah.
Like make it a place where it's interesting to go. It's like a whole experience for a game
Yeah.
that is more advanced or more comprehensive than just a mobile.
You
app.
nailed it on the head. I think early on, a lot of people were doing top-up shops, and it was like I guess Webshop 1.0, and now Webshop 2.0 is it's more than a hub. It needs to have more than a top-up. It needs to be a hub where you're offering some sort of incentive for them to come back. And I'll give one example. I'm not going to say the name of the publisher. I'm not going to say the name of the competitor. They released their shop 2 years ago. It has no live op mechanics. It's a massive game. They've shifted 10% of their users, and they should be at 30 to 40%. And it's because they're not offering any new offers, no reward, no loyalty. And for a long time, they were happy with 10%. Of course, the guidelines have changed, and senior leadership at the company is now turning the screws on them, and they're now realizing they need to offer that. But I think out of the box, a 10% shift for a basic shop is normal. But if you want to get to 40, 50, 60, sometimes 80%, it's a retraining or a behavioral rethinking of what a shop does versus what the app does.
Sorry, have you, without naming names, have you seen someone get to 80%?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Core game. 12 years old. Like deal hunters, mostly whales and dolphin, or mini whales. So,
That's super impressive.
yeah. So what's interesting is they are now, their argument internally at that company is, what about that 20%? Will we ever get them to move, even through a buy button or some crazy offer? And the feeling is they don't think they'll get them to leave because people are that 20% is so ingrained to spend on the phone. That's just the way it is. Yeah. So we're getting at, yikes. So we have 2 minutes left. I want to talk about the one mistake you should not make. If you were going to leave this audience with something when we are moving into this new world, what's the one mistake?
I mean, I would say there's two. One is don't ignore this at all. I mean, you're leaving money on the table.
Yes.
I mean, that goes without saying. Otherwise, you guys wouldn't be here. I think the other thing that's really exciting is that this is a golden opportunity to improve everything. So, you know, Xsolla has been really generous host. There's also some of your competitors that are also here. Shout out to AppCharge and everybody else.
Yeah.
But you know, rising tide lifts all boats,
Yeah.
right? And it's forcing everybody to improve their service offerings, what they can do to support their partners, and that's great news for developers and publishers. So my advice would be to talk to everybody, find out what's doing what, get different perspectives on the best way to handle your D2C strategy, because you know the strategy that we're talking about might not be ideal for you guys, and maybe there's another provider that might have a great idea that would convert super well for your game.
Yeah.
So there's never been a better time to talk to a provider to get into this game and to get good results.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
There's room for everybody. For sure.
It is. I mean, it's game genre. It's how long the audience has been playing the game. There's so many different factors that come into play when you want to launch a shop, or if you think you should even launch a shop. And Ozzy, I want you to give your opinion here.
So I would say, I mean, it's similar. I would say don't be passive. So I'll give you an example that is not directly from Webshops, but something that we just figured out recently. When I say,
this is a good point.
yeah,
You're right.
when I say don't be
yeah.
passive, don't wait for Apple and Google to tell you what's new and what they did because of legal challenges, because they're not happy to do it, okay? There's fine print. There are a lot of changes that they are forced to do in the US, in the EU, that they're not excited to do, but they need to do, right? One example is payments. So we found out a few months ago that there is this Apple program that a lot of developers are not aware of, and some of them are aware of and not understanding that they're leaving money on the table.
He didn't.
Basically, with a switch of a button, signing an amendment, you can switch in all the iOS EU revenue from 30% to 20% by, totally legit. Now, there is of course, they have the fine print and exceptions. The only exceptions is games that have more than 1 million, what they call first installs in the last year. But even with those games that you might have maybe one in your portfolio, it still make the whole thing affordable. So this is something we discovered. For us, it was $1 million profit without doing anything. Just by knowing that this exists, signing it, that's it.
I hope you got a bonus.
So my point is, don't miss those opportunities and talk to Apple and Google, because they need to be upfront and they will share it with you when you ask about it.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for your time. I wanted to open it up to questions. If anyone had questions, we have a few minutes left. Anyone? Go for it.
Does anyone have any questions? We've got about 6 minutes left.
Oh, you raised your hand. Anyone?
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 Yeah,
Yes.
over here.
Yeah.
Thank you for the chat. We know about the US. Would you see anything unfolding in any other geo?
Oh, yeah, we didn't
soon?
even talk about the EU, did we? So, do you want to talk about the EU?
I would predict that it will follow up.
Yeah. So, we know Apple got fined €500 million. I heard they're getting that reduced. They then pushed out new guidelines, which they said were going to follow what the EU Commission said. It didn't really follow anything. The EU Commission has said they're going to fine them again. My prediction is end of Q4 or Q1 2026, it should mirror what you're seeing in the US. So that'll give you the EU, that'll give you the US. It won't give you Canada or LATAM or other parts of the world. But that, I think, will be a big game changer for a lot of developers right now, because if EU Google happens, US Google's going to follow soon, because that's kind of what we've seen the trail happening. The reticence that I've seen from some of the developers of not wanting to do a buy button is because they would have to have separate builds it's like having to monitor one US iOS, one EU Android. It's just too much for mid-sized companies to really like think about. Once you see both happening, 2026, Q1, Q2, that's where I think we're going to see another like wave of people really taking this a lot more seriously. Hope that helps. Cool.
Anyone else got any questions? We've got another 5 minutes before the
5
next
minutes?
session.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've still got a little bit of time. So, you know, if you have any more stuff to discuss,
cool.
yeah.
We like questions, yeah.
Oh, I have a question. What about subscriptions? Like offering a premium subscription where it drives a tremendous amount of value, or do you think it's not even worth doing? So the subscription model is, I guess, what I'm asking.
I think it really depends on the game and the value that you're providing with that subscription. I think increasingly gamers are more accustomed to this mechanic, and if they really like the game, they're willing to pay for it, especially for the right with the right motivations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it's worth considering.
Okay.
I saw it less in our games, but we have another part of our business where we finance user acquisition.
Yeah.
So already 5 years ago, we saw, for example, apps for kids.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it's not even Budge. I'm
Budge?
actually talking about Begin.
Oh, okay.
Homer.
Okay.
And the subscription model was very, very intuitive for people to go and do on the web. Because I think the behavior,
You're right.
you know, of like I'm doing subscriptions to music apps, to things like that on the web, makes a lot of sense. And they already 5 years ago had a lot of the traffic goes directly to the web, and people getting more value by doing subscription there.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's it, unless anyone has any other questions.
Yeah, we still got like, what, three minutes?
I got more questions.
There's probably time for one more question if anyone has any questions.
I got one more. Would you ever launch a game just for D2C, not even put it on the App Store? Like just go straight D2C, or does the Apple iOS discovery mechanism just prove to be too powerful? Now we're talking about side loading.
I think not. As of today, I wouldn't consider that. There's just
Too much value.
there's still a lot of value in the platforms. You're not going to be able to get, you know, a grandma that's playing Candy Crush to sideload a game. It's just not going to happen.
Unless you fly out and hand her an iPad.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the capacity, it makes sense to get your game in front of your players through as many different touch points as possible. So for me, it wouldn't make sense to take the games off of the platforms.
Yeah, same. Let King or Supercell prove it first, and then we'll follow.
Cool. All right. I think I'm good.
You think you're good?
Yeah.
Okay, we can move on if no one else has any questions from the audience. Yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything. So can we give these guys a round of applause, please?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for hearing us out. Good. Stephen, thank you. Yeah.